Hey everybody, welcome back to the God XP Spiritual Fitness Podcast. I am your host, Ant P. I am very honored to have our guest today, Miss Alison Rothman. She is the founder of Embody Life, Awakening Authenticity, Connection, and Embodiment in Everyday Life. She's a body-centered, holistic empowerment coach, transformational group retreat facilitator. She's got an amazing website where you can read a lot of great content, get some free downloads, and join her newsletter. It's embodymylife.com. Very impressed with that. And check out her programs. For listeners of the show, you can use code podcastlove at checkout on her site for 10% off any programs or services. Very honored for you to be here with us today, Alison. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. That was such a lovely intro. And I too am extremely honored to be sitting with you and chatting with you today. So thank you for having me.
So I found you on Instagram a good few months ago, and I was just really impressed with your content and your consistency in content, but also your message, and just whenever I see a well-organized message, like a consistent message, I'm like, wow, it takes a lot behind the scenes to keep that kind of thing up. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Yes. Everybody's got the love-hate relationship with social media, and I grapple with it. And I have met so many amazing people through that platform that is really my impetus to keep showing up in the way that I do. And so I'm happy to know that my content has had value to you and that you did notice that. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's like really interesting to put stuff out into the internet, and then the algorithm gravitates like-minded people to you. And that ability for connection is just amazing. You can send out a signal so specific and so remote, yet someone in the world shares that interest and you'll connect with them.
I love it.
That's the positive thing about
the positive. I mean, obviously there are certainly negatives. I think my approach, and it just echoes into my life on the whole, my work, how I show up personally, is from this place of authenticity. And that's why I really strive on Instagram to just be myself. I'm not making these crazy reels and trying to do all these tricks to try to get attention. I'm just like, this is my message. This is who I am. Hopefully it resonates with those who need to hear it. So,
yeah, I think that's the only way to stay consistent, is just to be true, because the amount of energy that it takes to put on a display is so much more than just, if you're yourself, you can show up every day and it won't drain you.
Exactly.
That's what I found. So striving for perfection kept me from publishing. And then once I just let myself be myself, I started publishing a whole lot more.
Yep. Gotta be
so
yourself.
Let's get into your work. I would like to know, just like, how did you land on your holistic wellness practices? Like, how did they come into your life, and how did you decide? Because there's so much out there in healing and spirituality, health and wellness. There's so much out there, so many modalities that you could have chosen. How did the things come to you? Tell us like a little bit about that.
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, the world of wellness is saturated. There's no doubt. And I have been in this field for over 25 years. I started practicing yoga and meditating when I was in undergrad, struggling a lot of addiction and depression, and I barely was scraping by to actually graduate and just yoga. And that really was the beginning, but when I was 23, I totally hit rock bottom and ended up checking myself into a residential treatment center. And it was a holistic treatment center. And it was there that I really got all of the pieces of this holistic wellness puzzle and how we can heal ourselves truly from the inside out, from so many different angles, that there's not one trajectory. I had been in talk therapy 3 times a week, was just getting nowhere. So I ended up surrendering and going into a residential treatment center in Tucson. And at this treatment center, we got the taste of all these different modalities. They brought in holistic nutritional therapy. They brought in group therapy, art therapy, movement therapy. And mind you, I was a dancer. And so, but I was definitely in a place of being very dysfunctional in my approach towards my body at the time, obviously. And so it was for eating disorder and subsequent depression. So it was really, I was 23 years old and very dysfunctional, not functioning in the slightest in my life. I was in talk therapy 3 times a week and was getting nowhere. So I went to a place called Mirasol in Tucson, and that is where I really got all the different facets of the holistic wellness. And we did group therapy, we did movement therapy, we did art therapy, we did nutrition, herbs, chanting, flower essences, body work, energy work. I was getting acupuncture and nature. I mean, you name it, we were doing it. And so I really got this experience. It changed the entire trajectory of my life. But what happened was that I recognized in that moment that the healing journey demands so many different avenues and that there is no right one track for everyone to take. I left Mirasol and ended up doing outpatient for quite a while and really submerged myself in this healing work. And people in their 20s were traveling around and getting married and having babies. And I was like deep in my therapeutic process for a lot of years. And so since then, I've done other trainings and explored other avenues of holistic wellness. But really, I feel as though it's been through my personal experiences that I have landed in this place of being able to offer what I offer because I get it. I understand it on an embodied level. And so that was the long-winded answer to your question. But
No,
yeah,
that's great.
that's really what it became.
No, that's great. Yeah, and I feel like that's like a recurring theme in the story of a person who decides to spend their life in a healing practice is that they had a point in their life when they didn't have a choice and they had to shut their life down and figure it out or get out. Basically, the same thing happened to me. I was 24. It was like a long running depression that I couldn't really figure out. And it just made I self-sabotaged my life because I didn't know what was going on for a lot of years. When I just came to the conclusion that, look, I'm either going to commit suicide or I'm going to figure this thing out like once and for all. And I also felt like I forsook my 20s to just go all in on self-introspection. And I guess I was calling it self-development or personal development, but I was really trying to understand the self and study different things that interested me to see what I could spend the next, if I live 70, 80 more years, what am I going to do? And I ended up finding these practices like yoga, meditation to devote myself to so I could understand myself through them. So I think it's like our experiences lend us to the medicine that we end up
100%.
Sharing with others. Ultimately.
100%. Yes. Thank you for sharing that with me. Yeah. I mean, I think that the most potent is healer, heal thyself, right? And so I feel like we are able to offer really only what we know in ourselves. And so we can study, we can go to school, we can get degrees, but really it's like the life experiences that and how we transform them and how we really come into a deeper connection with ourselves, that's what translates into what we're able to offer. So how beautiful. And you're clearly having an impact on the world in this way. So
hey, I'm honored that you're enjoying the podcast. I want to invite you to join us on the weekly newsletter as well. This is a free weekly newsletter we host at godxp.substack.com. Get one weekly email sent to your inbox with enlightenment fuel, some existential inspiration, and keep up with the best of the podcast highlights and exclusive content, summaries from essays, other cool stuff. Go to godxp.substack.com. It'll be the best spiritual newsletter you follow on Substack. You'll get it sent directly to your email every week, conveniently. And lots of people enjoying the newsletter. Be one of them. I will see you there. godxp.substack.com. Okay, so we were talking about our shared experience just in our 20s and having gone all in on ourselves really young. And then, so how do you feel like that affected you? Do you think like there was times later on when you looked back and wanted to experience more of like, it's just like living unconsciously and just living in the world again for a little while and putting down your self-analysis and all that?
That's a great question. I'm laughing because I'm like, could I just relax and just enjoy? It just feels like it's like one thing after another. And it's just me. I'm a Scorpio. I like to dig deep. And so, yes, after my stint in Tucson, I went and lived in a yoga ashram in Colorado, which is how I ended up in this area. And so I was like digging in there, and then I had a little bit of time before I got pregnant with my son and became a single mom almost immediately. So I feel like I am, in so many ways, I've evolved myself through my own journey with myself. Relationships were put at the back burner. And so now I'm actually in a partnership and have been for 7 months. And he's my soulmate life partner. And it's bringing up a whole other level because I didn't date in my 20s. I was like celibate, not necessarily by choice, but just because I literally just couldn't deal with anybody else besides myself. So and then moving into being a mom. And so I would say that's the piece that now I'm in my late 40s and I'm like, oh, I missed a lot. I feel a lot of just the free exploration, not just with men, but I had so many friends who did a bunch of travel, and it was just stuff that I could not do because my main relationship was with myself and trying to unwind from this lifelong addiction that I had and this pattern of dysfunction. So now here I am. I'm turning 48 soon, and I have a 13-year-old, and I'm craving it. I'm craving just a little bit more spaciousness and a little more levity, I think, in my life. So I'm trying to carve it out, but yeah, that's actually a very good question. Yeah.
So how are you navigating it? What are you doing exactly to live that out?
My partner, interestingly, is all about play and fun. And so he's really liberated this part of me that hasn't been able to do that sort of thing. So it's like small moments. We've gone to tons of concerts, and we just did a river trip with my son. We went camping. We're planning a birthday trip. Like, he's helping to enliven this part of me that was suppressed for a long time, of play, of adventure, of exploration. And it's really different being the age I am and having a teenager and in the crazy times we're living in. But I'm trying. And for me, it's really about moments because I am who I am. And at this juncture, I mean, it's like people are like, oh, the midlife crisis. I'm like, I don't see it as a midlife crisis. I see it as a midlife awakening. I feel like I know myself so, and I'm not going to, we're always changing, we're always evolving, we're always growing, but I can't just drop all my responsibilities and travel the world for 6 months. That's just not a part of my reality.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. That's amazing. I went through the same thing when I met my girlfriend. I was living in so much solitude and just constant introspection that when we met, it's been almost 3 years now. We met and I was like just like this stoic saline, didn't go out, just had my discipline, my daily habits I was very like religious with. And she was just like a force of nature that came into my life that she was able to remind me of just how much childlikeness I'd lost, like how to laugh and how to have fun. Those are things that I just lost and I didn't realize because I was just always in introspection. And so she's been able to restore that wholeness in myself as well, and just in her natural presence, just how she is. It's a and it's just an amazing path of understanding the self, paradoxically, like to live with someone or to be with someone all the time. It's you thought you knew yourself, but there was no noise. There was no one else around. It was just by yourself. That's just the first part. Then you have to expand into like having relationships. And then you really start to see who you are. Like the noise becomes a lot louder.
Absolutely.
So that's been an
I love
amazing
that.
self discovery experience as well, being in a relationship.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's for me, it's next level work. And really, I feel like I actually started creating a program for men and women to bridge the gap between us after being in the single world for so long and trying to date people and just recognizing these relationship patterns. And this podcast is not supposed to be about relationship, but regardless, I just feel like it is, to me, it's next level, and it's spiritual growth, and I'm all in. And it's bringing up stuff that I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know that I still have that going on.
Yeah.
Ah. Yeah. So, and then bring a 13-year-old into the mix and say, oh my God, there's some days where I'm like, I just can't even deal with anybody. So, yeah,
It's a full-time work,
it
definitely.
is.
Yeah,
It is.
it's like it's not ironic. It's like paradoxical though. Like when you are like when you renounce everything and you just live without, then it's like the opposite. Like you need to go out and experience more of the world in order to like know who you are, as
Mhm.
opposed to like where most people, they never spend time alone in introspection. And
Exactly.
so it's they need to do the opposite of the thing that the renunciate needs to do, is just like you get really comfortable in that place that was originally uncomfortable. And so
Yep.
that's like
Yep.
that life is always like a pendulum swing.
I was just thinking about that the other day, of how valuable it is and important to be alone. And that so many people cannot be alone. They're totally uncomfortable. And so they're always grasping to be around other people, to date somebody else, to hook up with somebody else. And those years of being alone were so empowering to me, so rich. And we need the balance, right? We need the balance of being able to be alone and to be with ourselves. But I really feel like when every person, I mostly work with women, single women, I'm like, enjoy this time alone, really use it well, and get to know yourself and get these practices in place so that when you are in partnership, when you are in relationship, you can meet that person from this place of wholeness. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that you get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that for myself, and I felt like it was the greatest blessing I gave myself, is just to I was in a relationship when I was young, and when that one ended, I just gave myself like all the time in the world. Like just don't do that until it happens. And I spent 4 or 5 years in basically in relative solitude. I still had a job and stuff, but no one was hanging out at the house. I didn't go out that much and wasn't dating. And I think that's probably universal advice. It's as close to I think a universal advice. If everyone had at least 3 years where, I mean, even if you have a family, just cutting off the extra stuff, the extra social distraction. I think if you could just do that for a couple of years and focus that time on cultivating the inner environment, that's got to be good for every single person out there.
I agree. And if you have a family, make sure you have the practices in place.
Mm-hmm.
My son was about 3. I was single mom in it, and I felt like I was drowning. And I decided I was getting up. I needed to get up a solid hour before him and meditate, because I needed that time of quiet and connection before I could deal. And that practice, has stuck. I'm still up at 5:30 every morning meditating. And so even if you're immersed in family life and partnership, etc., that it is crucial to make sure that you have some things for just you, that those opportunities to really drop in and connect, so that you do have that anchor to your true self, so that translates into how you're functioning in the world.
Yeah, that's extremely like just extremely practical advice, especially for the spiritual path. For example, when my girlfriend and I started living together, she didn't have a meditation practice, and I was like religious about my practice, morning and night. Like I had to have my practice, and learning to find time that I had to find a new time and a new approach to keeping up my practice, because I couldn't just kick her out. I can just say, "Hey, I got to practice, beat it," or "Don't bother me." It became like a very much a search for like a new way to practice. And
Mhm.
I think that I didn't realize, but like when you have a partner, you have kids, like you really have to find time and have reverence for that time, because you need that chamber with yourself. You can't just wake up and constantly like the alarms are going off, and then you have to go out and there's everyone yelling, and then you go straight to bed. Like it's not sustainable. So
Yeah.
yeah, how do you feel like, what's like some more like practical advice for carving out moments of devotion in a busy life?
Yeah, as I said, the morning practice time is crucial for me. And now I have a teenager, so I'm like dragging him out of bed. He used to wake up at 6, so I had to get up super early. But I sit every morning. I have my ritual. I make my beverage and I write. If I have time, I go to my mat and I move and just really resource myself before launching into the day. And then at night, it's like I like to think of it as like bookmarks, right? Or bookends. So at night, I'm really protective of, I listen to the binaural beats. Yeah, I listen. So I play the binaural beats and I take a bath and I stretch, do restorative yoga and candlelight. And it's so, this is not obviously every night. I don't live with my partner, but when he's around, I relinquish some of the control, but I do still take a bath and still have that time of introspection. For me, it's, I have to get out in nature. And that is another opportunity for me to get grounded. And I happen to live in Colorado and it's beautiful and there's trails right here. But I always, when I work with a lot of, like I said, women, but a lot of moms, and I'm like, you've got to do the morning practice and you need to carve out time after your kids go to bed for just you. But during the days, I mean, to me, it's a mindset of how can I stay super mindful as I'm moving through my days, as I'm in and out with clients, or I'm working on a book right now. Like, how can I stay present with that so that I am resourced in myself, even when shit hits the fan? Because it always does with a kid. There's always something going on, right? And that is really the premise of my business, is like, how can we embody life?
Everyone's running around like chickens with their heads cut off, screaming that the sky is falling. But if you and I were born 200, 400, or 1600 years ago, the chaos, disorientation, and confusion would still be there. There's nothing new under the sun. If there's anything I've learned from reading history books. And it's the silent operators who know what they're doing here in life, in general, fulfilling their purpose still. Getting all the health, wealth, love, and happiness that's offered in this world. Today, right now. See, the world's not going to end today. You're not going to die today. But the clock is ticking. So what are you going to do to make sure that you get yours? See, only you can save you, and only you can determine why you're really here. This life is a one-player game. No one else is going to be able to save you. So, how are you going to get your health, wealth, love, and happiness? How are you going to squeeze every last drop of existential potential out of this life for you? You might not feel connected to the universe. You might not feel like you have a divine purpose here, but you must want to squeeze every last drop of potential out of your life before you die. And if you do, then I recommend you go to deathmastery.com right now and join the next spiritual fitness camp. This is a concrete way to level up your spirit for you. Self-transformation through active meditation and writing, because no one knows what you're going through. No one knows why you're here, but God, the universe, the source, the divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it. This game is between the two of you. There's other spiritual fitness athletes in the community right now, designing their life, clarifying their self-image, and building a concrete roadmap to fulfill their existential potential in this lifetime. Go to deathmastery.com right now and sign yourself up for the next one. They're 1 week long meditation and writing camps designed to help clarify your life and give you supernatural momentum towards your ultimate goals. Whatever that is for you: health, wealth, love, and happiness. Ultimately, dying like a hero going home. Forget all this nonsense going on in the news, in social media, entertainment. It's all here as an illusion to distract you. That's a part of the game. Are you ready to level up? Wake up from this shit. Quit playing around. Go to deathmastery.com right now. Use code GODXP20 and get 20% off your next camp. I'll see you on the other side.
That is really the premise of my business, is like, how can we embody life as it is? We can't necessarily, I mean, it's not been my path to be able to go off into some beautiful retreat a couple times a year, go sit by the ocean, whatever. I mean, I'm like, how can you stay connected to yourself in midst of the swirls of life? How can you, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and it's ever changing. We are ever changing. So our children are ever changing. Our partners are ever changing. So how can we meet these moments But having the baseline practices, and again, you're a meditator, so you get it. Like meditation is where it is at. It will carry you through your life. You can be sitting in meditation no matter how old you are, no matter how your body's functioning or not functioning, and really training the mind to be able to stay steady in the calm, in the storms.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. And I think it really, it reinforces that the other principle of successful spiritual life or healthy spiritual life is having some rituals that you keep, a daily ritual of, introspection, of devotion, whatever that is for you. Meditation works, I think, pretty universally as well. It's one of those things. I think it's the most direct access to that chamber of inner stillness that we all have inside. And without that, another thing I was going to say is I think having these inner practices is in general more difficult for men. Like, I think guys have a hard time accepting like that they need time to focus on the inside. We'll just keep shouldering stress, and that there's like this kind of a feminine feeling or quality to taking care of the inner self. And I think guys are not comfortable with adopting those kinds of practices, just like a cultural thing, probably more than anything. But that's been the biggest the biggest transformation I've had in my life is when I finally let go of like my pride and my ego and just allowed myself to adopt new practices and try them out and become a student of things. And a lot of those things are inner practices that takes letting down your shield, takes you have to take off your armor in order to get into the bath, let's say. So in these practices, that transformation is awaiting everyone. And so I definitely encourage like that men would take on these kinds of practices and not feel like they're giving up some kind of a defense that they've built up, because your strength is still going to be there. You can always choose to let your ego take you in any direction you want after you've let it down and allowed it to rest and gotten comfortable with yourself again.
Beautiful. I'm like beaming. My cheeks hurt. I completely agree. And I feel there's this theory that meditation is like this woo practice, and like real men don't do woo woo practices, right? And I hear this a lot. I'm just not good at meditating. I can't meditate because I'm not good at it, right? And I just want to say that it's not about getting good at meditating. It's about getting good, and I don't like using the word good or bad, but good in quotes, at being with yourself, of learning how to see yourself. That's what meditation is about. It's not about you sit and your mind is quiet. No, nobody has a totally quiet mind, but it's about learning how to sit and breathe with ourselves and be with ourselves while the swirls are happening, and continue to work to train it to not engage. So we learn how to respond to life rather than react to it. And I think I'm not a man, obviously, so I can't speak for that, but I am raising one, and I see his curiosity. And when he was little, I did force him to sit with me at night. We would do these short meditations. And even if he was laying down, I didn't care, because there is something about creating the space to just be quiet. I also think in general have a hard time with, maybe humans in general. So I would say if you can't like physically sit up in meditation, at least carve out some time to just have quiet, without the noise of the world, without the noise of social media, scrolling, phones, etc. So that was like a little tangent.
Yeah, no, that's good. What is meditation like for you? What are some of your like meditation practices? What is the history of your meditation practice? Yeah, how do you practice?
Yeah, this is it's gonna be a really short and sweet little response here. I am all about simple. I literally, okay, let me back up. So for years, I just did whatever. And then I started teaching these yoga and meditation retreats up at the Shambhala Center, Red Feather Lakes, about 8-9 years ago. And I taught the yoga portion, and there would be a meditation teacher there from Tibet, usually, or somewhere. And I co-taught with this one man who, he said, if you meditate with your eyes closed, you are resting. If you meditate with your eyes open, you are meditating.
Mm.
And so I started from that point on, I started doing open eye meditations, gazing at a candle flame. And it changed everything for me because what I noticed was because I am sitting so early in the morning, I mean, it's dark outside, I'm rolling out of bed. If I close my eyes, I literally just want to go back to sleep. I am not alert at all. But by having the candle flame and having my gaze be soft and open, it keeps me alert and it keeps me focused. So I am an open eye meditator and I work with a mantra. That's it. I'm nothing fancy. I usually just use the word love. I breathe in love, I breathe out love, I breathe in love, I breathe out love. I have a couple other little mantras that if, especially in the mornings, if my mind is really active, I'll bring in a couple others, but super simple. And that I think, some people are like, oh, I have to have a guided meditation. I'm like, I don't, especially in the morning, I'm like, I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I don't want to listen to
Yeah.
anybody. I don't want to hear anybody. I'm like, I just need simple, very simple. So I have my little ritual. I burn sage and I draw a card. I light my candle. And I'm 25 minutes is my sweet spot. And that's it. So nothing fancy.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to that thing about having ritual and having a practice that you can do every day. And I'm just curious. I think a lot of people, when they're trying to cultivate a meditation practice, there's like a period where you're exposed to a lot and you don't know what to make yours. And I just like hearing how people come up with their practice and what works,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
If it works, if you're able to do it every day, then it's working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And get some people need more to get them to sit. But I just feel, and this is how I really try to live my life, is just keep things simple. Let's not overcomplicate things because then it becomes overcomplicated and confusing, right? So simple.
Yeah.
Simple. Yeah.
And so when people are trying to find their own path, their own thing, their own way, let's say someone's trying to find their own way and they haven't had an existential dead end, or they're just floundering. Everything's going well, but they're just feeling like a growing anxiety about life, and they don't have any rituals, they don't have any practices. I feel like what a lot of people do is turn to the internet and they start reading about a lot of different things, and they're consuming a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, but it's not actually helping them transform because they haven't actually, like you would say, like they haven't embodied it into their life. So I think the more that you consume, the harder it is to actually end up like choosing, like, okay, this is me, or this is the moment. I think it basically comes down to is this the moment? Is this the thing that I'm going to believe in and go after? So if someone's in a process where they don't have to choose because they're able to feed themselves, and maybe they're in a marriage or whatever, and they're just like going along with life, how can that person just, what was your advice for that person to just pick a thing and go for it?
I mean, there's a lot of truth to what you just said. And I see it all the time of people get addicted to reading self-help books. I
Mm.
can't tell you how many hours I used to spend like in the bookstores, like in the self-help section. Like, this book is going to be it. This is what's going to save me. This is what's going to fix everything. And now it was before like the internet was inundated. And I would just say that, I mean, two things. One is trust yourself, make a choice and trust yourself. The second thing is if you choose something, give it some time. People back, like for meditation, for example, just because we were just talking about it, my people are like, I can't meditate. How long did you do it for? A week. No, a week is not going to do anything. You may feel a little better, but actually you may feel worse because when you sit, all your shit comes up,
Yeah.
right? So I would just say there just comes a point in time where you got to just take a deep breath, make a choice, and stick with it, commit to it. Say, okay. And that's even like in choosing to work with a coach or a therapist or something. Like, you can't go twice and expect that everything's going to change. No, it takes time. And what we're working with is creating sustainable shifts in our lives. And sustainability is not, you don't just tear the band-aid off, or you don't just go full on in boot camp and then expect that everything's going to transform in your life, right? We're looking to how can we create new pathways in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, and that takes time. make a choice and give it some time. If it's absolutely like a no, pivot. Like you're not like locked in, but I would just say stay off the internet. I mean, really stay off the internet.
Yeah.
Like find your path, find maybe one or two people that resonate with you and hear them and listen to them and read them. But it's so much noise that is completely overwhelming, I think, on the whole.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like I kind of lucked out by picking something early and just getting with it, like just making that the level of this game of life that I was going to play. And it's like in the game of life, there are infinite levels which we can play. But if you sit staring at all the levels and never choosing one, then you're not getting to play any of them. And it's just causing you a great deal of anxiety to look at them all. So, but once you pick one, any one of them will get you a lot further than you are right now. And it might
Yeah.
not be the one, but then you can choose again later. But like you have to pick one, the one that feels most congenial to you. Sure, go for it, but pick something and then make that the game of your life. Just decide this is the game of my life. Today is the day. It's
Yeah.
passing me by. Tomorrow never shows up. It's always now. Today's all there ever is. And
Yeah.
like the past is never going to come back. So I have to make a choice. Pick the thing that sounds most congenial to you today, and
Mhm.
then make that your new game in life, your new adventure.
Beautiful. Yeah. And we grow and we change and we shift. And so practices can grow and change and shift with us. Look at it as, and this is bringing in the holistic perspective, like something that works with your mind, something that connects you to your body, something that connects you to spirit, something that feeds your soul, something that gives your heart some like aliveness. And then you get creative. But there has to be, and I think especially anyone who's just starting, like you, yeah, like you said, you gotta choose something and
Mhm.
just get going. All right.
Yeah.
And you and I have both had near death experiences. So I'm sure that has just gives voice and impact to our message around, hey, you really don't know if you're going to be
Yeah.
alive tomorrow. So what are you waiting for? Right.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had someone tell me a couple of years ago someone who read my book, they said the thing about you, I think that makes your voice sound so sure about these things is that you actually know what it's like to experience death. And being
Mhm.
young and experiencing death is actually like an incredible gift at the end, because like now you know how precious every moment that you get to live is. And that's not to say I don't squander time. I still squander time and squander opportunity and all this, but like just the appreciation is life is a sweet, sweet nectar every moment. And I think so. If you have not had a near death experience, I still think you can consciously realize or look back on the loss of a loved one or something and just like consciously realize that one day you are going to die, and that the impetus is on you to get as much out of life as possible. Like just start getting that bucket list, do it today, because tomorrow never shows up. And when it does, it might be your last one. So yes.
Yeah.
So have you felt like a magnetic, your message of having your near death experience? I'd like to talk more about that, but have you noticed like a magnetic people sharing stories with you about near death experiences that they've had, or sharing with you how your story has impacted them?
Ish. Not as much as I would have anticipated, honestly. I mean, people who hear my story are like, whoa, I can't even believe that you had that experience. But I've honestly, and this is why I'm pleasantly surprised, I've honestly been looking to connect with more people who have tasted death, are have really been transformed by that moment and are fueled in their lives as a result of it. So I'm really grateful to be connecting with you about this. Yeah. And I'd love to
Yeah.
know the story too. So maybe I'll have you on my podcast.
Absolutely. I would love to. Yeah, it's that I'm still exploring this, but it seems to be like a recurring theme in a lot of people's stories of great achievement or stories of some miraculous thing happening in someone's lives. Like it seems like that thread of having experienced death gives people a second chance at life. And so I've been trying to connect with more people as well. And I find having people on the show is a good way to find those kinds of stories, because people who are risking it all in life, let's say, they're doing it because something happened that made them do it to risk safety and security. And typically those things tend to be like these crazy stories of experiencing death or something. And also there's something about like death being like one of the greatest taboos that we have as living beings, that there's something magic or something special behind the door of death. And I think if you're brave enough to like explore what that means for you, there can be boons that come to you from that. I think death is a friend, and if you treat death like an enemy your whole life, then when it finally comes for you, and it comes for us all, then you're going to have this foreign feeling with it, and that's scary. But if death is a friend, then when the time comes, you'll be familiar with this friend and you can go home hand in hand.
Absolutely. I love that. And I mean, to me, there's something about, I had so many people, not so many, but I had some people be like, oh, you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I don't look at it that way. I was like, I was meant to be where I was. And I know I was divinely sent to be a light to, I mean, it's a big story. Obviously, I don't know if we have time to get into it, but I fully trust my journey. And the near death experience came as a bookend to a lot of other traumatic life experiences that were really fucking hard. I mean, I am not saying that it was like, oh, I was meditating through them. No, I was definitely brought to my knees many times. But this moment of thinking that I could die was this awakening in me that I've actually, yes, it has fueled my desire to be of service to humanity in so many ways. But it also gave me this gift of perspective that I did not have. I was definitely walking around in a state of fog, and definitely walking around in a place of feeling, oh, something like this would never happen to me. Never. I live in Boulder. I'm in the Boulder bubble. Like nothing penetrates this. And that moment was just, it was such this deep sense of peace, but also this propelled me into this way of living that is really hard to articulate in words. But I fully trust that I was supposed to be there. And I don't believe there's accidents. I mean, I really believe that we are given these paths for reasons. It sounds like you are on the same track with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it made me wrestle with God because I didn't understand why it would happen to me. And because of it, it gave me the existential confusion that I needed, because I didn't realize like how limited my thinking was about myself and about God and about life. And that's why I see it as a gift, because it forced me to question why I'm here. It forced me to question, like, why didn't I die? Why am I here? I felt like a ghost walking around. And that's a really difficult thing for people. And this is another reason why I wanted to like share my story in my book and do the podcasts, because there's not really a support group for people who develop like an existential post-traumatic stress. That's such a rare thing to happen to someone, that like when it happens, they don't know who to talk to about it. And that happened to me. And I spent a lot of years just not having any landscape of or architecture of information or knowledge to deal with that kind of thing, or even identify it. So the effects of death, both positive and negative, is such an interesting thing. I think it's because it's so unexplored yet and hard to quantify.
Yeah, now I like really want to know your story. So I'm gonna have to bring you on the
Yeah,
podcast
we'll
at
talk
some
about my story on your show, but for now, will you
point.
walk me through like your experience with death, and like your near death experience? What were those moments, the existential moments of being right on the precipice of death in your consciousness and the inner conversation? I think that's the question that never gets answered when people talk about their story of near death. What was the inner conversation, and where were you in your conversation with death, let's say?
I'm going to do my best here to remember. So I was in Mexico traveling alone for my 43rd birthday. So just about almost exactly 5 years ago. And broad daylight, 3:30 in the afternoon, I was at a hotel, restaurant, bar situation. I happened to be the only tourist there. Mexican drug cartel opened fire. And long and short of it, I had been right next door to this hotel at this little taco stand, and I'd gone there every day and had been in connection with the waitress who worked there. Like she thought I was like a movie star or something. I would come in with my like wide brimmed hat and my like sarong, just trying to protect myself from the sun. And she didn't speak any English, but we just had this very sweet connect. We would hug. And so, that day, I probably left there at about 12:30, 1 o'clock. I had this very clear moment of like, I gotta go. I need to leave here right now. I didn't know why. I left, and fast forward to 2-ish hours, and that's the cartel opened fire there. Killed her and 4 other people. Yeah.
Wow.
So I happened to be next door. I don't even know what brought me there, but again, I was sitting there alone writing, and first gunshot went off, and it sounded like a bomb. And it was at the time where, I mean, I feel like this is still happening, but where there were all these people like shootings happening. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? This cannot be happening. But at the same time, I was so present. I was like snapped into the present moment. And I had this moment of, oh, this is why we meditate. This is why we learn how to sit in with ourselves in the middle of crisis, truly. And everybody, all the people who were working there, all ran and fled into this hotel room. And one of the waiters grabbed me and took me with him and stuck me under a bed. And there were like 4 more succinct gunshots. And this Mexican waiter was like, he stayed out, and he was a lookout. He just took that role on, and I was laying there, literally not knowing if this guy, whoever it was, he was going to come over and like open fire and kill us all in this hotel room. And I was just overwhelmed with this deep feeling of peace, that everything was okay, that whether or not I lived or died, that everything was okay. And then I was flashed with, obviously, these moments of like regret. Like I had been an asshole to my dad, my elderly dad. And I hadn't really appreciated my son, even though he was like at a really challenging age, and had this vow to myself that if I did emerge, I was going to do better. I was going to be a better human in that moment. But I think the thing that sticks with me the most was that I felt timeless. I felt as though everything just paused. There was no fear. And like I said, it's really hard to put into words, but I was so deeply connected to my heart and was just really floating in this like, on this like pillow of like peace. Like everything was exactly as it was supposed to. There was not time in that moment of regret. Let me tell you that in the days after, I was certainly in this place of what the fuck? Like, why me? I mean, after everything I had been through, why was this happening to me? Definitely questioning my connection to God, to source, to spirit. And it took time to unravel it and to really recognize the medicine in that moment and how it did propel me into this other state of existing. So I don't know if that answers your question. And there are other events after it that kind of solidified this feeling, but I knew that I was like I said, the only tourist here. Everybody else would have been freaking out, and I was so calm. I was walking around putting my hands on like the people who were working there were like shaking and crying and pouring their hearts out to me, and I was like, I felt like I was sent there as like a light worker to like help to usher, help to be of support. And so yeah, so that's a snippet.
Yeah, wow, what an amazing experience. I mean, scary, terrifying, but amazing, like in its magnitude. And the losing the sense of time and just getting those little realizations of, oh no, I can't say goodbye to that person I love. Like those are like those final feelings of death that like most people are not thinking about, but when you experience, that's those are like the early signs of death coming to your door. Let's say, like when you're in the room with death or something, like you start thinking like, oh, you lose, your paradigm shifts so that or maybe your consciousness expands, but like you lose track of time and space. It's like you forget where you are. You're just like
Yes.
in the room with death, let's say. And that the things that you think about is, oh, I should say goodbye to my loved ones. But in some cases you can't. Let's say you can't make that phone call. And so those moments of having to let go of the idea that you're going to hold on to your life, like that's another step of death moving closer. It's okay, I can't make the phone call. Like now
Yeah.
you're not in time and space and you can't call or reach anyone. You're basically like in a dimension of in between in that moment. And of course, this is all happening in your own consciousness. You didn't end up getting shot, but like your consciousness was putting you in that space so that you would be comfortable if you did have to give up your life. And that's so amazing that all this is going on inside of you. Like we're programmed to have that defense mechanism, like preparing us for death. It goes beyond being able to defend yourself to stay alive, but we also have a mechanism that allows us to accept death with grace. And that's an amazing, it's like such an amazing blessing as a living creature that has to face something it's never faced, that it doesn't remember facing before.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Life is never the same after you experience something like that. Your lens is so different. And I think that's a big piece of where my approach to my work and just to how I strive to live is like, let's not fuck around here. Come on. And I mean, I work with it myself. I'm stuck in the same cycle of something. Like, what is it going to take to, like, life is short, life is precious, as cliche as it sounds, but it's true. And I do think that these times and all the craziness in the world are giving more people that perspective. But
Yeah.
unless you have actually tasted death that close to your being, it's hard to grasp, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like what I've noticed is from the last few years, I've been trying to just let myself experience life more, I guess, let's say.
Yeah.
And I've noticed the rat race or like society is just like constantly on. It never turns off, and it'll suck you in and you'll follow. It's like the movie The Matrix. Like you get pulled into the Matrix and you forget what it's like to be out of it. Meditation
Oh,
is a tool that we can use to like unplug temporarily. And near
okay.
death experiences are another one of those things that plugs you from the Matrix for a time and you're like, whoa, life isn't what I thought it was. And then if you get put back in right away, it's like, what do I do now? Now I realize that there's more and I didn't know. And so I think like for people without a meditation practice and who haven't had a near death experience or one of these existential moments of God coming down and
Mhm.
smacking you, like it's hard for them to conceptualize the idea that they are stuck in a matrix or stuck in this rat race of life. It's really just unconscious habits that we pick up because there's so much going on, and
Yes.
because we picked them up unconsciously, they're not really us, and we haven't
Yeah.
really established ourselves in life without those things. So once those things get pulled away, whether you lose your job or you get a divorce or a loved one dies, like these are things pulling you out of this matrix that you've been just entangled in. It's like a web.
Yeah.
And so like these things that we're talking about, meditation or having a near death experience, which you don't want to seek out near death experiences, but that's just something that happens to you. It's not your choice. I can't think of the word, but meditation is something that you can do that is a choice. And so that's, I guess, where our work comes in, is like helping people with these practices that have helped us and sharing those with them, and just like, hey, life is tough because that's just how it is. But without something to help you turn off the lights and turn off the sound of the outside, you're never going to know what if what you're doing is true to you, if what you're doing is a good use of your life. And I think that's what really gives people existential anxiety, existential depression, is what am I doing here? I'm doing all this stuff, but I didn't choose any of it. It's just happening to me. And so, yeah, I think that these healing practices, a lot of them come from ages past. It's our ancestors passing it down, and just, it's not perfect. Maybe the next generation will make it better, and then maybe the next generation will make it better. And by carrying on these practices and cultivating them in our in humanity, like, we're giving the next generation a chance. And so I think it's, these things are here for us, these practices. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I love it. What kept coming up for me listening to you was about being proactive with our lives. Being like, we can choose. Yeah, there's so many things that are out of our control. I mean, really, they are. But to be spinning in the depression and the anxiety, and be proactive. And if you can't yourself, seek somebody who can hold that for you until you can find it in yourself, right?
Yeah.
This is the life that we've been given, truly. And so how can we be proactive in our healing? It's not going to just happen for us, right? We have to take the steps. So yeah, so I just wanted to throw that into the
Absolutely.
mix.
No, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. I think that's like the ultimate spiritual realization, is that right now is the moment. You have to realize that, like, right now is the moment. And if you're always thinking about the next moment, like, you'll never get this one. And this one is all there ever is. Even dwelling on the next one is a waste of this one. And you can't ever be there. You're always here.
Right.
So you have to eventually realize, like, right now is the moment. And that realization is the place of transformation. It's the place of making a new decision. You can't make a new decision unless you realize, like, right now is the time. I'm going to make this the moment.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's I love having conversation that just organically uncovers these, like, really motivating truths about life. It inspires me to be better. And just hearing it from other people, just from another perspective, just like the same truth that has impacted me so many times, like, to hear it's impacted someone else, and then to see how they've embodied it and invested it in their life. That's why I do the show, because it's just so inspiring. I can't stop.
Yeah, it needs to happen. These conversations need to happen. And it fueled me too, because I go through my own stuff too. But to actually step out of my own story and my own life and to be in connection with others, I mean, that's where it's at. And that's why I run women's groups and run retreats, and did my own podcast for a couple of years, because having these conversations is what is going to shift the planet. Being able to be in connection, in authentic connection about these life truths is transformational, and it does light something up. I'm more inspired now too. So thank you. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to take this energy and this information with me and spread it to whomever I encounter with the rest of my day. And that's how it works. We have that opportunity to really have a ripple effect on the planet. And it begins with us doing our personal work and connecting with others who are also on the path. So
Yeah, it feels right. It feels like doing good for yourself in a way that can bless others is like a good use of life. And I've questioned a good use of life for a long time. And I really struggled with that. What do I do? There's been times when I didn't want to do anything. And there's been times when I wanted to do way too much. And I'd landed on healing myself, and in a way that can also help others.
yes.
That was like the answer for me. And I kept it simple. And over the years, I've tried new things and I keep evolving as a person. But my North Star is continue to grow while helping others grow. And that kind of thing, that kind of North Star, I think, no matter what you do, if you have something, a really high core value, your highest ideal, that will get you through finding the right path. You might have to find a few different paths, but like, you're always on your own path. You're only ever going to take one path in your life. So every moment is a chance for you to learn who you are and to explore what life means. And life is a beautiful gift, and it's an opportunity. Every moment is an opportunity, but it can seem like a prison, and it could seem like a meaningless burden if you don't choose something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know we need to wrap because I got to get on a call in 5 minutes, but how old are you? How old are you?
31.
See, I am so inspired by, I just interviewed somebody on my podcast, a young dude who also had a near-death experience in his early 20s, and it woke him up. And like the good you are doing for your generation and the generations to come is so profound. So
I
keep on
appreciate
going
that.
towards that North Star. Yeah, absolutely. And it truly is such a deep honor to be in connection. I'm so grateful that you found me on Instagram and took the initiative to reach out. It's rare and speaks volumes about who you are and your character. So thank you.
I appreciate it. It's an honor and it's been such a blessing. It's a wonderful episode and I can't wait to share it with people. I want to have you on again. Let's do it again in 10 months or so and
Yeah,
have me on over at your show.
absolutely. Would love it. Absolutely.
If you have one last piece of advice for the show, what would it be? Person listening today, what should they do today to just get the most out of life?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm surprised that this is what came through, but I'm going to trust it. To take a pause and take some deep breaths into yourself and really feel your body, feel yourself in your life. Really open your eyes wide and look around and really take it all in, this gift of the present moment through your senses. It's rare and so needed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Alison Rothman, follow her is at Embody My Life on Instagram.
It's at embody_life
and go to embodymylife.com. And yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed that podcast episode, you're most likely going to love the next one. So why don't you go to podcast.godxp.com and subscribe on your favorite platform. Curious about what else is going on at GodXP? Go to godxp.com today. I'll see you there.